It was the year 1999. And throughout the northeast United States, a severe problem was at hand. A major shortage was ravaging the area. Now, it wasn't a shortage of food or water or even hot dogs. Instead, the region was plagued with the dearth of pennies. Suddenly, nobody had any usable 1-cent coins to pay with. Stores had no idea what to do, and banks began to pay their citizens 55 cents to return rolls of 50 pennies. Mayhem ensued as the question was posed. Who took the pennies from the federal banks? You took the pennies from the federal banks! Who, me? Yes, you! Couldn't be! Then who? Everyone. Eventually, a conclusion was made concerning the locations of the millions of pennies. They were locked away in people's dressers, hidden under their beds, wedged between the sofa cushions, and in other wondrous places. The American people were having a hard time finding the value of Abraham Lincoln's likeness on the little zinc disc. Worth something in the past, the American penny has now passed its glory years, but continues to be disseminated widely, only to be sucked into the abyss and never used in any way. It's time for pennies to face their official demise. They've been troubling the American society for long enough. Now, one might think, the penny. What kind of topic is that? They're completely worthless. And that's exactly the point. It's time to admit it. When you walk into a store and receive 4 cents change for a purchase, few people can honestly say that they're happy with their new acquisition. Couldn't the cashier just give me a nickel? After all, it's only 1 more cent, right? Thus, in 2 different ways, we demonstrate how little the penny means to us. We hate having 4 of them, and think they're cheap enough to simply give 1 away. While pennies could buy aptly named penny candy in the early 20th century, these coins now have only 1/10 of the buying power that they had merely 50 years ago. Try sticking a penny into a vending machine, a newspaper machine, or a parking meter. It just doesn't work. A penny doesn't even buy a person's thoughts anymore. The whole country proudly shows its apathy toward these small coins. Most stores nowadays have tip jars filled with those 1-cent culprits. Those ever-lucky pennies are found strewn all over the ground, in school hallways and in buildings, and are usually abandoned, never to be picked up. Many tourist attractions even have small cranking machines, in which one sticks in 51 cents and pulls out a penny pressed into a small souvenir, which is technically illegal. But nobody seems to mind. The American people just don't see the worth of this minute legal tender. Now, admittedly, Benjamin Franklin did say that a penny saved is a penny earned. And this adage remains true to this very day, but only in the most physical sense. A penny saved is another penny in a jar, or the pockets, or the laundry, or the attic, or stuck in a baby's tum-tum. Perhaps at least is our location of the mall. This would be adverse in the fact that the zinc which comprises pennies reacts with stomach gases, forming zinc chloride, a chemical usually found in car batteries. This would lead to the wearing away of the stomach lining, creating severe ulcers for small children. Any parent would find such information less than energizing. It seems apparent that the penny might be a little more insidious than we thought. Even at stores, pennies have ways of nagging without prejudice. Studies show that an average of 2 to 2.5 extra seconds are wasted in cash transactions that involve pennies. At the end of every workday, employees have to stay after hours to count individual pennies in their registers. And if need be, stores have to literally purchase rolls of pennies from federal banks for up to 10-cent markups per roll. Statistically, things just don't get any better. Every year, the 3 American mints create and ship off over 14 billion pennies, which is about 38 million a day. However, 2/3 of those pennies fall out of circulation immediately, never to be seen again. The U.S. Mint actually estimates that in the last 30 years, almost 200 billion pennies have simply disappeared. Abraham Lincoln would be ashamed to to hear of how his penny portrait was being defaced. Some might say that he'd actually roll over in his grave. Now, if he was hypothetically raised out of his grave, but did roll over once for each of the 9 billion pennies unused each year, and he was 2 feet across, Honest Abe would trek over 6,800,000 miles a year. That's enough distance to take a round trip between the Earth and the Moon. 14 times! Now, rolling over that many times would hurt. And even Abraham Lincoln would probably call for his pennies to stop being made for such a painful price. After all, he still has the $5 bill to his credit. And you don't see many of those just lying around in the streets. It seems apparent that the American penny has been deemed nearly worthless by our society. Yet this leaves us with the question of why they continue to exist in the pockets and the jars of our nation. And the answer is fairly simple. The stubbornness of American tradition is a behemoth obstacle that we first have to overcome. Pro-penny advocates claim that since the penny was first designed by Benjamin Franklin and produced by Paul Revere, it's so intertwined that the American culture just can't be removed. Now, this is a perplexing problem, but also a serious one. Tradition is the idea that something should be passed on through the ages, usually because a certain entity is a delightful fixation that everyone should have a chance to cherish. That's why things such as ethnic dances, Thanksgiving dinners, and the hokey pokey continue continuously. They're fulfilling, enriching, and enjoyable. But to say that pennies pass this test would be pound foolish. Now, the topic of minuscule money may not seem as compelling as morals and materialism, but don't underestimate the penny's impact. When it siphons away millions every year, angers both vendors and consumers, wastes exorbitant amounts of time, and creates ouchie-boo-boo tum-tums for little tiny children. Pennies are a serious issue that demand our genuine attention and need to be eliminated. Nevertheless, the blind eyes of culture just haphazardly say that these coins just have to remain. However, culture has failed to save many of the things of the past. Eventually, white powdered wigs became unfashionable. Colt 45s had no chance against machine guns in the line of battle. Horse-drawn carriages couldn't win races against Ford Mustangs. And mullets became downright frightening. In each one of these cases, a certain part of America that was important in the past soon dissipated because of a lack of practicality. Americans have to face the same challenge once again. We have to realize that things such as tradition and culture are not end-alls, and in the case of the penny, are merely excuses to keep 11 million pounds worth of pocket change, which are holding America back from being able to move forward. In the mid-20th century, America moved forward by abolishing the mill, a coin worth 1/10 of a penny. Nations all around the world have eliminated the lowest coin denominations, and even American military bases are progressing by no longer using the penny. Some people like to argue, however, that having no penny would mean that all taxes would be boosted up. This misinformed populace fails to realize, however, that when a tax is added to a total, the mathematical chances of rounding up are the exact same as rounding down. And even if it does round up, we can be assured and guaranteed that these extra cents are not being lost in erroneous orifices and crevices like our current cents are. Sometimes moving forward just requires some sacrifice. And if abolishing the penny counts as sacrifice, then we must be willing to move on without them. And we can do this in several ways. The first way would be to contact a local congressperson and ask for support of the Legal Tender Modernization Act. This bill would cease all production of the American penny. Besides that, all other attempts to get rid of the penny would be individual and symbolic endeavors. Talk to your friends and family about just how trivial and irritating pennies are, and chances are that most of them will agree with you. Look around wherever you go and really notice how little the American people truly prize the penny. Take action against the conspiracy, whether it means you don't carry any of them around with you, or you take rolls of pennies and randomly chuck them at people in the streets. You might want to save a couple rolls of pennies for bail. In In modern-day America, the penny has proven itself, time and time and time again, to have an existence of fruitlessness and clogged sinks. It is proven that its individual worth as money is infinitesimal, while its collective loss as money is grave. Change must occur now before any more trouble ensues. The poor, putrid plight of the problematically poignant pennies can only be powerfully protested when the people pile up and propose a proper plan to prescribe the pestiferous petty pennies from production. Maybe those people in the northeastern United States with their penny drought were up to an interesting idea. Maybe they knew back then what we finally know now about this American penny. The need to abolish the penny is more salient now than ever before, and must surpass the impediments of tradition and culture in order for our society and our country to move forward. Seeing its diminutive effect on our nation, the penny just doesn't make any sense.